Chapter 1. The Corpse in the Closet. When the blaze bored through the grandstand of the Burlington dog track, it threw a hot scarlet splash against the midnight sky. It was visible for miles and acted as a beacon to guide the third alarm company's highballing from two directions. Todd Naughton, Central Office Arson Squad, glimpsed the tragically beautiful mirage as he whipped his red roadster out of the river tube and skidded along the main stem of the suburb, seconds ahead of the squalling ladder truck of Company 17. With sirens sweeping the streets of free traffic, they raced for the grounds, and when the Arson Dick caromed through the main gate of the dog track, the big truck was so close behind it appeared to be shoving him with its powerful headlight beams. Naughton skidded his roadster to a quick stop in a spot where it would be clear of the crisscross hose lines, silenced as a shouting harness bull who wanted to object, and pushed the police lines in search of battalion chief in charge. He found Chief Hardsley at the back of the roaring grandstand, his face grimy and soot-streaked, in the center of the fight. Engine 11, Captain Doan, your company lay aligned to the track side of the fire. Lay it reversed to the hydrant at the south end of the stand. Hook up the pumper in a line. Use a 2-inch nozzle. Hurry it up. She won't last much longer. The hosesman of Engine 11 scurried to obey and Hardsley pushed the helmet to wipe back sweat away. He saw Naughton, scowled, and nodded in recognition. You don't get much evidence out of this blaze, he growled cynically. We might as well all go home. The hot flames sucked at them and the heat made the Arson Dick grimace. Incendiary, he asked. Hardsley snorted, replacing his helmet. What else? She broke out in 3 places at once, kennels and at both ends of the stand. But there won't be anything left to show that. I only hope I don't lose any men. Naughton frowned, spread a hand before his face to shield his eyes from the heat, and surveyed the scene. He knew the track. He had attended the last big meet there. But it was an empty shell now, a total loss. Where once had stood the kennels were now streaming ashes. The track trail was gone, the standing pathetically alone in the tottering grandstand was the white mechanical rabbit. His legs were stretched in mock speed, but he was now a merely twisted bit of metal that would delude the doggies no more. All this Naughton absorbed in one swift glance. It must have represented close to $100,000 investment, fired deliberately, according to Hardsley. A hosesman stumbled over, coughed smoke out of his lungs, and said something to the battalion chief. Hardsley let out a string of oaths and pushed a blackened fist over his eyes. Here's something for you to sink your teeth in, Naughton, he snarled as 3 smoke eaters staggered over, bearing a limp burden and a canvas tarp. They dumped the thing in front of the chief. Almost automatically, a white-clad intern appeared and jerked back the edge of the tarp. It wasn't a pretty sight. Even the intern winced. The clothing was burned away, save for the remnants of the shoes, and the flesh was roasted beyond all recognition. It was a charred ember with shoes on. Hardsley instinctively moved round to protect the corpse from the flying spray with his broad body. Where'd you find that? He bellowed out, trying to make his voice carry above the thunder of the pumpers, the caterwauling of sirens, and the maniacal cackle of the flames. In a closet near the office, the hosesman answered hoarsely. I was looking for a basement entrance. When I hacked away at the door, it tumbled out. The closet didn't go no place. He panted to a stop, exchanged glances with one of his partners. Another fireman clarified the accusation. The door was locked on the outside. He must have been put in there on purpose. Back to your posts, Hardsley ordered the hosesman. Naughton stared at the thing that had once been human and sucked air through clenched teeth. A murder always tightened an investigation, made it doubly difficult to work out because the press clamored for immediate action. It was brought in on the homicide boys who wanted to clear up the cause of death, and not the source of the fire, and those responsible. That's a selection from The Complete Cases of the Arson Dick by Leslie T. White. It's from the Dime Detective magazine. There was only 4 of these stories, and they were all excellent. If you like pulp, you'll like these stories. It's about Todd Naughton, an arson investigator that, as the title Arson Dick, he's a detective that investigates. Uh, he investigates fires, and usually they end up being arsons, which is no surprise. There was 4 stories in here. Matches in Hell. Todd Naughton, Arson Dick, knew the old maxim about the uselessness of matches in Hades, but it wasn't till he tangled with that trio of firebugs who were ringing the 3 alarm murders week after week that he realized that the old proverb could have had a double meaning, with a blazing kickback at each end. Another one called Eyewitness. Homicide works no bed of roses under any conditions. But when not only the victim, the evidence, and the very spot where the body was found all go up in a pillar of flame after the kill, it can become plain hell, as Tom Naughton has learned. When he went to work on the charred corpse in the closet of the Burlingford dog track, which is the selection that I read for you there. Ashes of the living. 3 charred and blackened bodies are the only clue to the identity of the arson killer who had kindled that ancient fire trap. And Todd Naughton, investigating the murder blaze, found his job doubly difficult when one of those human corpse torches suddenly sprang alive. And the 4th story, 4-alarm murder. 2 men, a veteran smoke eater, and a paroled ex-con, had been gunned out, and an entire building kindled for a pyre to devour their lead-sieved bodies, and then one holocaust after another followed while the arson devil's unholy laughter echoed above the blaze which licked away with scarlet tongues all the clues to the motive of his identity. You get a sense of the over-the-top over-the-top stories in there. Like I said, there was 4 stories. It has the covers of them on the back of the book. Uh, it's really an entertaining read. You can get through them pretty quickly. The little summaries of the stories there pretty much encompass what this book is about. And Leslie T. White did an excellent job. No relation, by the way, that I know of. He did an excellent job of making every story start right in the beginning of the story. It just went straight into the action, got in and got out. He came in. One of the things you learn about writing is that you get into a scene as late as you can and you get out of a scene as early as you can. And that's what he did. And he just gave you what you needed to know and kept the action at a fast pace. And everything was a lot of fun. I mean, as much fun as you can have with arson, I guess. But really interesting main character. You get a good sense of him throughout, even though there's only 4 stories that were ever done for him. I wish they had done more because it was really entertaining stories. This was a really entertaining book. And you get a sense of the smoke eaters, which is what he calls the firemen. You get a good sense of some of the firemen in here and what they did. You get a little insight into how they put out fires during this time in history. You get a little bit of that, so that's kind of interesting too. And you also get just straight out action. I mean, they're setting fires to stuff, people get killed, everything, like I said, goes up in smoke. And you get a real entertaining 4 stories in this. They're little novellas. And this book is excellent. I'd highly recommend it, especially if you're into pulp. Even if you're not into pulp and just want to get into pulp, this would be a good place to start because there's only 4 of them. They're excellent, and uh, you really get a good sense of what Pulp Fiction was like coming from this book. So I hope that you'll check it out, and thank you for being here with me this week, and I'll see you next week.